Welcome to this town hall meeting. We have a program in 3 parts tonight. That seems to be the best number for us human beings. Those of you who were at the town hall meeting in January remember the open microphone session in which any resident was welcome to express a problem, a challenge, a difficulty of this or that. And the first part of our evening is going to be the response of Mayor Weil and the city administration to those concerns which were raised. Secondly, questions have been invited and have come in during the last several weeks in writing, and those have been edited a bit, and a dozen of them, well, all that came in, are going to be addressed this evening. Now, and then finally, if you have questions that arise in your mind this evening, you are welcome to write them down. Carol Patterson and his Milt Greek will go around and supply paper if you need it. Just wave a hand and I'll bring you some paper. And wave it again and come back and pick it up. And Beverly and Muriel over here will try to, we'll say, sort them into stacks of similarities. Probably a good way to put it. And so with that, why, let me introduce our Mayor, Paul Weil, the Honorable Weil, Mayor Weil.
Thank you. I'm glad everybody showed up, and there's a lot of people here. A couple of things, some housekeeping things and some thank yous. First of all, I may not get to all the questions. I may delegate to other members of my administration. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody who put this together, League of Women Voters, and the volunteers who aren't the League of Women Voters. Could you guys stand up? I know it's you three. I saw Carol here someplace there, Milt. Who else am I missing right there? Paul Logue as well. Thank you. They did a lion's share of work here. The other group I want to point out is my city administration, which make me look good. Why don't you guys stand up? I see you.
I am
you. Okay, we're making them work hard here. Okay. And they make me look good. And I'm going to start off with some housekeeping things, since I have a captive audience here. First off, I'd like to tell everybody that 4th of July weekend's coming up. There will be a parade, and the 3rd, of course, will be when the fireworks go, and there will be traffic problems, as always, with the fireworks. They'll be down in East State. We will be having fireworks. The next one I want to bring up is that, and the Chief Troxel's not here, but he wanted me to let everybody know that you shouldn't play with fireworks. It's illegal unless they're sparklers and all those low-grade ones. Firecrackers, bottle rockets, etc., are not legal to shoot off in the city or anywhere in the state of Ohio. I think it's a $1,000 fine, up to a $1,000 fine. And we just want you to blow your hands off. And last after that, of course, is that garbage will not be delayed. Some of the other things we have here, we have for 4th of July. Some of the other things I want to bring up too is that we have a CD-ROM with the bike ped plan, pedestrian plan we just got done. We also have one for the Comprehensive Plan Review Advisory Commission. That's a CD-ROM that you find at the table there. We burned it as well. It will be on the city website. The Comprehensive Plan Advisory Commission just gave their report last night. It covers where we are in the comprehensive plan, looking at benchmarks, how we're proceeding, and where we're going. They also, of course, have a turnover of membership, so if anybody interested in joining and actually working with them to find out where we're going, please contact Ed Baum, who's the chair at this point. Okay? It's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Okay. What we did is, of course, we looked at our benchmarks, what we did with comprehensive plan, which, of course, is now, depending on what you look at, either 3 to 7 years old, maybe even 10. And it's really where we want to go with the city. And I behoove all of you to look at it. I can tell you the truth, I look at it occasionally. Usually I go do a word search to find it, what I'm looking for. The bike ped plan, which was just done this year, think of it as a supplement to address other issues in terms of where we want to go in the bicycle plan. Some of the updates I want to give you. Of course, you can see that the roundabout is in progress. I'm sure all of you know that already, one way or the other, and it's on track and under budget.
They're on track. Yes, they're on timely. We may have to extend the full closure for up to 4 more days, but right now the contractor has not asked that. So
Okay. Jeff Hill will be open, is going to be open and fixed by September, just so you know. I'm just kind of bringing up some of the issues that I brought up last time, and an update on them, of course. One of the new things, of course, let's see. One of the new things that was brought up and actually passed last night is to put on the ballot a renewal of our 0.1 tax levy. This is a renewal for our streets. This is a 10-year levy that was passed actually 9 years ago. They'll have an overlap. If we can institute this one this year, get it passed, we'll have an overlap of 1 year. This is very similar to what was done last time, the last round 9 years ago. I think Councilman Van Meter put that through. I'd have to ask Nancy, or I see Nancy nodding yes, and she's reading. So Nancy Bain, who's been the historian, so to speak, or the historic perspective of this, it gives us a double bump of income tax for 1 year where we can do some of the projects we'd like to do. In particular, I have in mind, of course, Grosvenor Street. I have in mind we need to get the sidewalks fixed. This will generate about $600,000 and so our income tax will go for 0.65, which is what it is now, to 1.65 to 1.75 in 1 year, and then get back down to 1.65, which is what we're paying now. As you know, those roads are always a little bit behind the curve in terms of repairs. So that's part of it. Let's see. We have the solar panels aren't up because we're waiting till August. We had to wait for GOBA to come through and get done. Some of the issues, of course, is we're doing the. Let's see. You're aware of the fact that we have a historical district being proposed for the Elmwood and East State Street area. The deadline for that, we've had 2 meetings on that. The deadline for that is, for commentary to the Ohio Historical Society, is July 16th. You need to put your 2 cents in, either contact me or the planner, Paul Lowe. The intercity bus system, essentially is going to be administered by HAPCAP at this point. That's a Hocking, Athens, Perry community action. Most because we didn't have the staffing to do it. This is to set up the bus system between Cincinnati and Athens, as well as Athens and Columbus. And they will administer it. This means that we'll be working with them. It's a county, 3-county agency. Which brings me to a philosophical point. We have a couple things going on. This is in my second part of my term, my first term. And philosophically, of course, is that we're a region. We just released some buses that we have. We're going to probably give them to some nonprofits or service industries, probably outside the city limits. And I mention this because we have a Athens County mobility coordinator by the name of Lance Rep. He's working with HAPCAP. Again, we've tried to look and focus at the region at this point. And I bring this up because it's a philosophical question. Do I represent the city? Do I help the region? Am I selfish, just pull the stuff in and say, let's stick with what we have and keep it? I was at a Mayor's Association meeting last Thursday and Friday. What was of interest is I realized that we're one of the bigger cities here. I always forget Athens is a big city for this area. I mean, if you look at the population of Marietta, it's not there. If you look at Logan, it's not there. And therefore, we should be a leader on some level. We should be actually helping and assisting other ones, other smaller villages that are in need. And I mention that just because I want your opinion. You're the voters. Okay, let's see, some of the other issues that I'm thinking of too. We are in the midst of doing a, what would you call, a natural hazards mitigation plan countywide. Again, this is a county regional look. This is being re-upped. It should be done by the end of the year. If you have any commentary on that, or if you think, of course, the biggest one here is floods. And we're looking at how to upgrade that. We also have coming down the pike some changes in our garbage. We have an upgraded waste district plan that has to be put in place. We are aware of the fact that we are not doing as much recycling as we need to. And the question, of course, comes to how to get a better strategy to pick up the garbage and get the recycling going. With that, let me start working on some of the questions here. Questions. Some of the questions that arose, I think one of the first ones, I'm going to take it in orders that I know of, was a question, of course, about the infrastructure for gas. The gas. You're aware of the fact that Columbia Gas, carbon dioxide, monoxide too. You're aware of the fact that Columbia Gas has been placing about 1,500 rises in the city limits, or actually in this zip code. That's what they say, but that's the city limits for the most part. This is obviously something they had to do. They've been repairing it along the way. They should be almost 90% done. This is again a part of the infrastructure needs that we have in the city. Carbon monoxide, as you know, an ordinance was passed by Council Member Kuhn. It is tabled right now because of the evaluation of where we want to go with scoring how a carbon monoxide detector is proper or not. The question came up, is it's UL approved, is that adequate, or is that just not regular enough? So that's in progress right now. One of the other questions was resiliency, having to do with community resiliency. We have, as you know, passed a garden ordinance to allow people to have gardens without having to go to the zoning board of appeals. It does not include chickens. Let me state that. I have been fielding calls in the past 2 weeks. I believe my director of code enforcement has been fielding calls about what are the chickens doing in town. I guess I know that Councilmember Butler, who I don't see in here, is he here? No. Has been discussing the idea of allowing chickens and legislating the use of approval of chickens within the city. I know that's a contentious issue. It has to do with the resiliency. Do you want your eggs? Do you want fresh eggs? It has to do with also whether you want a city or not that has chickens and chicken coops. A discussion I had on the telephone just 2 days ago, actually yesterday, was I fixed my house. It's a $200,000 house. There's a chicken coop right next door. What is the deal? So that's going to come up along the way here. Traffic. There's a question about traffic. We're working on the timing, I think. I don't really have that. This is a traffic concerning traffic light at 682 in Union heading south. I believe we fixed that along the way. And there was also a question concerning the lights at the skate park, whether to leave them on or in terms of safety, as well as they're on when nobody's there. From what I've been told, Rich Campitelli, my director of Community Center, Arts, Parks, and Recreation, has stated that if you leave the lights on, they will skate all night long. All night long. So we just did it on to a certain amount of time, and then we turned it on. What is it, 9 o'clock, I think? Somewhere
I think they allow a little longer in the summer.
10 o'clock. That's okay. Deterioration of community. Concerns of trash and signage. I guess I should cover the signage part first. I may leave it the trash side to my co-director. Signage. We had a task force a year and a half ago to do signage. We got stuck kind of on sandwich signs and real estate signs. We started up at the Planning Commission level where we started looking at the history of this, going back to a 1999 appeals for signage, for basically rental signs and nameplate signs. After reviewing the transcript of this appeal, it was decided that really, one, we won the case, two, that those signs were actually illegal. So at this point, I had the co-director put some letters out to all the landlords saying you must remove those nameplate signs and the rental signs. The code as it states now is 2 weeks after you have a lease, the signs come down. They do not actually say when the signs go back up, which is the wiggle room. The nameplate signs are not supposed to be in R1s and R2s, bottom line. Am I correct in that?
Nameplate can be in R1 or R2, you have to live in the house.
If you live in the house, okay, not a rental sign, okay. We're thinking more in terms of a historic sign. So this is a location of the wilds, I guess. You can tell my house is purple, so you don't need a sign, a nameplate sign on it. So we're trying to clean up the signs. This comes along with the idea that we're trying to get a nice pretty community. The fact is we've got large percentage of signage rentals in the city, and just having nameplate signs does not attract, is not attractive, at least the opinion, as well as the law right now as it's stated. Let's see if I can cover more here. Sidewalks, we're working on it. I don't know what else to tell you. The limitation there, of course, is that we can go out there and tell everybody to fix a sidewalk. The limitation of that, of course, is if they don't, we have to fix it, and then we have to put money up front and get it at the back end. I'm hoping with the levy we can do that next year. Right now, the Public Works Director, Andy Stone, is very busy with projects, as you may have noticed. Between the Jeff Hill, the roundabout, the Brine Lagoon, which is about $150,000. It's going to be in train, right? The other one that's doubled the price. Salt bin. Salt bin has gone up in price from $100,000 to $250,000. So that's getting pricey, and we're dealing with that. One of the questions was building codes. We have, I should leave that to John, so I may just bring him up and to cover these things. Are you taking notes, John, so you know what I have to cover? Okay. I know that we changed some of the code to add building codes from Ohio to reference it. We struck out major portions of it. We also have a contract registration of contractors in progress right now. That started in June, 1st of June. Just so you know, and we're not, this, somebody registers, they'll have a certificate like this, okay? So you know what it looks like. If you got a contractor coming to your door, ask them, do you have one of these? If they don't have one of those, they should have a card. Should say Office of Code Enforcement to certify your contractor name is a registered contractor in the City of Athens. And it'll have an expiration date, a contractor number, and signed off by the director. This is so we have a little bit more control of what's going on in the city, both from the auditor's point of view to garnish the income tax that we may or may not be collecting. I was just listening to NPR this morning. They're having problems with the spill out there because everybody works off a cash economy, so they don't even know when they say, oh, I'm losing business. They've been working off cash so long that they can't prove that they've been losing money. Not that we're going to have an oil spill here, but the fact is there's consequences by this. We lose income tax, you don't have a tracking of who's doing what, and you don't know the qualities of the person. And it goes without saying, if you're going to have somebody work on your house, get references, don't pay them up front, get their name, get their address, make sure they have a card. And if they don't, call the police, call code, and say, who are these guys? Can you tell me about them? And maybe they'll, and that's it. They should be operating not on a cash system. As much as it's nice to do cash, there's a question about that as well. Other questions? Okay. One of the other questions, what's going on with the Armory? We're still using it as storage. We haven't any money to fix it. I'm actually trying to find some grants to do that. I'm hoping to find, if anybody knows of a grant for record keeping. I think there's a lack of record keeping needed in the city. I've talked to some of the other city officials outside, county-wise, and there is a need for this. I think it would be an appropriate use of that. And let's see. And I'm going to leave it at that and jump to the April. Some of the things I didn't add were, of course, from the April meeting, which were more focused. Of course, trash. We talked about signage, of course, was another issue. Neighborhood vitality and integration. That's a hard one. If you look at the numbers right now, we are probably we're still building houses. We're doing okay on that, but we're losing ground in terms of overall rental. We've added apartment complex, Palmer Place. You can see the one that's now on Lancaster, which used to be the laundromat. There's more on Stewart and Millline that's happening. But all in all, the university is still growing. I have kind of monthly conversations with President McDavis, and of course he's pleased about that. I also rebut and say, okay, but the neighborhood associations are concerned about that. I know you read in the paper they're going to renovate the dorms or their housing units. The question is, are they going to increase capacity, decrease capacity, or what? And I've kind of tasked my service safety director to find out. I suspect we may have a crunch on that if they continue increasing enrollment, and that is a concern. What to do about it? Better code enforcement, I hope. That's why I'm tasking John with most of that. I look down the road and say, how do we deal with that? It has to do with all of us working together on that, because if there's complaints, if there's problems, we need to know about it. There's a couple occasions where I have people come to me and say, this is a problem, and I say, did you call the police? And they said, no. If we don't know it's a problem, it's like potholes. If you don't report the potholes, we're not going to know they're there, unless we drive over it ourselves, and that's a lot of driving just to find potholes. Your eyes and yours here. I think that's the first question on this that was covered on the submitted and advanced ones. Let's see. In terms of the buildings, we issued in 2009 6 new single-family homes and 3 multi-family duplexes, triplexes, and of course the 110-unit building. In terms of this year, we've gotten so far 6 new single-family homes built. But again, we're not tracking which ones are rentals at this point in time. One of the other questions, I'm going to run through these questions real quick, and then we can go on to and if somebody needs what?
I think John wanted to speak to the
I just
rental.
said all the ones I sent you were all single-family owner occupied. They will not be rentals.
They're all single-family occupied, unoccupied. Okay, thank you. I should defer to him. One of the other questions are, sidewalks currently required in all developments? Yes, they are. If you look at the subdivision regs 210518, they are required. The only time we wouldn't have them is on a planned unit development, where we start messing with the parameters. Planned unit development, of course, is the concept that you can have you have impacts that have to be dealt with. So therefore, there are occasions where that happens. Wiring underground. New developments require underground wiring. That's also in the subdivision regs, 210606. Retrofitting wiring is a little bit more difficult. You see all the poles up there. There are areas that we have high water table and you can't really deal with it. There's other areas that you just can't dig into the ground because of the rock. It'd be nice if we buried them all, but it's very pricey. No parking on Blick Avenue. I noticed that. I drove down there yesterday. Actually, drove around yesterday checking it out. It's a very thin street. It has no curbs. It has actually people parking on the grass occasionally. The townhouses have, looks like 1 garage space and almost 2 for parking on the driveway, but not enough really. I believe those are 2 and 3 bedroom townhouses.
They have been notified, and all the property owners were sent a letter by the developer to continue parking in your driveway and in your garage.
Speak louder. Stand up. I'm going to put you on the spot. Since I'm in your bailiwick, go for it.
I was saying the Blick Avenue project is being built right now. I have contacted the developers over there, and they have sent me a letter, and they have sent letters to all the property owners in that project that they are required to park in their driveway or in their garage, and there is to be no on-street parking. There is a valid point made that in the future we maybe look at making developers provide an overflow parking lot for projects like that, and that's something we will look at.
And this comes to part of the planning commission with the plan unit developments, as well as looking at subdivisions and requiring this. In the law, you don't require some of this. On PUDs, you can actually put it into the mix. The other questions I see are environment. Since the outside lights can be said to turn off when not in use, including skate park, will the police chief address this policy as a safety issue? First of all, chief, I'll put him on the spot here.
The community center does keep some lights on, for security after hours. As far as the skate park, that's an issue. There's two sides of that coin. One is if they leave the lights on, even some dim lights, they'll have skaters there all night long, which can be a safety and also a noise problem. If they turn them off, skaters still might go in there, makes it harder for all sorts of spot people in there, but I'm just going to have my crews come by with a spotlight and check that area periodically. So there's two sides of that coin, and it'll probably be debated for a long time to come.
Thank you. Let's see. The next one was current status proposal to consolidate all the bus services. That's one of the things I failed at. First year I was in office, I was trying to put all the bus systems together. It pretty much shattered, and we have more bus systems than we started with. That's unfortunate. Part of the reason is that Courtyard and Summit both felt that they should have exclusive. One for Courtyard is that they actually went in-house working with the university, so the university picked up their bus system. Two is Summit on Coach Run really wanted an exclusive bus system. If you're watching their ads all during the start of it, they didn't really want to share the bus. And I say that because really that's what they were marketing. And the limitation of what we have, since we're financed by the feds and the state, is we have to let everybody on board, bottom line. So we ended up with an extra bus system. We never even really talked to University Commons. They like their buses quite well, the school buses quite well. There's also, of course, a mismatch between the bus systems. The university has a 30-minute free bus system. I know there's a task force led by Chris Nisley that meets monthly on this, on various transportation issues. We had the representative from McDonald Transport, who does our transportation, actually came down. One of the things he first brought up at the first conversation of this is there has to be a vested interest and there has to be some buy-in from both parties, and there has to be something good for both parties and something they want to do. And this is the issue. To share the bus systems, would it be a synergy or would it be less than so, and who foots the bill on each side? Our bus system runs once an hour, it's $1.50. The university bus system runs really just one loop right now, occasionally a second loop up to the ridges. They do a loop through campus and West State Street. At this point, that's free every 30 minutes, so how do we get this as a connect? Again, the other complexes really require identification to get on to the bus system. So it pretty much fragmented to where we are now. I know the discussion is still going on. I know that we are coordinating with some things, of course. And actually, I have to give kudos to Ron Lucas and the task force, bus task force. We're going to try getting a unified signage system just so we don't end up with a plethora of signs for the different areas. And we're required to coordinate our routes so we get better efficiency at that. That's a work in progress. Do you have any idea when the signs will be up? Soon. Hopefully before September. Again, you'll see it. It'll be a common bus stop center sign, and then the various routes as they overlap will be listed below. I believe they're color coded, so you can identify them quite easily.
They are made there.
They are?
Signs are made.
Okay.
So,
But as I say, that did not work for us. Again, there's a question of who foots the bill, how do you finance it, and where do you finance it. The conversation in past years when the previous bus service was out there was, if the university would finance it, put a fee down, everybody with a student ID could ride for free. We probably have to adapt our routes to make it more useful for the students at that point. Again, it's a tight financial situation we have with the bus system. We get most of our money from the feds and the state. We're still putting some money in all the time. We're flush with buses right now, but this question, of course, arises that it still costs money to run the buses. The next question, can lawn service providers be persuaded not to use potent and toxic chemicals in the city? And I'm going to go over here to my certified arborist and the assistant service safety director. Can you talk about that?
sure. Let me get out of my corner here. To answer the question about anyone being persuaded to or not to do something, that can happen. You can persuade someone not to spray chemicals. However, it is within the law. If someone is authorized to spray a toxic chemical, for example, Toradol, which is a form of weed killer, which is pretty strong, and you wouldn't see it as a homeowner. You have to be licensed to buy that, and you have to wear the proper protective equipment, and you have to sign it appropriately to not allow people to walk on that for 24 or 48 hours. You have to do press releases, a number of things to inform the community not to be around it. Whereas something like Roundup that you would get at the local store, it's something available to everybody. You are required to wear, to follow the label on that pesticide, to wear eye protection, hand protection, long pants, long sleeves when you're spraying that at home. However, it's not against the law to spray that material. The city does spray herbicides in the city limits along guardrails and some signs in the area, not in the wildlife protection area though. And we have to have a licensed applicator to do that. And our people have to apply a certain rate and a certain amount per gallon of the material. So I guess the answer to the question is we could probably say that we could discourage people with spraying pesticides in the city. However, it is within their legal right.
And I defer to him because he is certified also to apply herbicides and stuff like that. He's one of our certified members of the administration. Can plastic grocery bags be forbidden in the city in order to encourage use of cloth grocery bags? That would be an interesting prospect. I think some cities have done that. If my memory is correct. San Francisco, someplace?
California.
Seattle. I would probably, thank you. I would probably tell you to lobby your council members who are sitting right next to you and give them a wet form. I myself like paper bags myself, but I do have cloth bags I use regularly, mostly at the farmer's market. Mostly because I forget to take the ones to the supermarket. But that could be done. I think, as it stands now, the plastic bags, usually there is a recycling drop-off at some of the stores. I wouldn't know which ones offhand. I know Kroger's after that. I'm not sure Walmart or the other ones. As I say, since I use paper most of the time. Okay, dog laws. Regarding many dog owners let their dogs roam freely in neighborhoods and along the bike path. Can more dog wardens be assigned? Can citizen volunteers be authorized to serve animal control officers in the city? I think we're investigating the idea of citizen volunteers to be authorized to serve as animal control officers. That's a tricky question. I mean, are we trying to arm everybody with tasers to shock the dog if they see a dog violating something? Are we going to, how do you educate a volunteer to say this is where the limit is, this is where the cutoff is? It becomes a tricky question. In terms of roaming freely, the law says you can't have your dogs roaming freely. If you see a dog, that's a problem. You can call the police, you can call the county dog water animal control. In both cases, we have a lack of personnel to actually engage immediately. By the time they get there, the dog will probably be gone. You can talk to your neighbors about it. I know it takes more than that. Some neighbors don't really want to talk to you about dogs. At this point, if there's a problem with dogs, I would call the police and start a track record on it. We've had a couple cases where somebody's done a whole list of all the times the dog barked, and they made a nice list, but they didn't tell us about it until the last minute.
If I may, Mayor, I believe you call the police if it's a noise issue. You're supposed to call the dog warden if it is indeed a roaming free dog. Would you agree with that, Chief? So.
And again, we had several years ago a dog warden and contracted part-time dog warden with the county. That pretty much is not in existence now, but I think it would be up to, if it costs money, it'd be up to council to staff it or decide if we want to enter an agreement with the county. I could recommend it. I don't know if there'd be followed through on that. The last two questions I have in my list here is religion and city government. What is the role of city government in the decoration of public areas and religious holidays? Good question. I think most of the time it's taken on by the personnel of the people in the office. I don't think there's any real formal decoration going on. I mean, if somebody wants to put up some lights in City Hall, I let them. I think it's good for morale. There's no obligation. The second question, are city employees compelled to participate in religious-oriented events? No. I don't think I could drag them into any type of religious event they didn't want to go. Again, I think this is no different than somebody putting from my mind, somebody putting a bunch of balloons on their desk for birthdays. I think it's just part of the ambiance of trying to make a home away from home.
I believe that the real issue is the fact that the city indeed does put up a holiday tree. We do put up holiday wreaths, and we do have that man in that suit and the white beard do rides. And at this time, we don't have any intention of not having that because it's such a part of the culture. It is not a promotion of one particular religion over another. So.
I think I've covered everything unless you want to add. Does anybody want to add anything? John? Chief? Did I cover everything? If not, I'll hear about it, I'm sure.
Thank you, Paul. Is this still on? Yeah, it is. Okay. Now, you may or may not have realized it, but that we've completed 2 parts of our 3 parts this evening when the mayor went into those questions. And let me say this, the committee got those, we redrafted them, but the mayor and his staff had the full text of what you sent in, because a lot of you had illustrative examples and this and that, and so the full text of what you sent was behind those answers, and then the committee reworded those. Now, I think what we should probably do is to have a short break so that you can stretch and think of and write down some more questions. So why don't we just stand up and stretch and take about 3 or 4 minutes and write more questions.
You got your badge. I do. I should get my badge.
Okay, here's the first one. What are some of the arguments against the keeping of chickens in town? What kind of concerns are there about it in the community? What could be some productive steps to take toward legitimizing the keeping of chickens in town? So, Your Honor, would like to address that?
I can start. Let's see. The conversations I have, and I may call upon John Paskey here, because I know he's been fielding complaints. I think he's unofficially 4-1 against. Is that it?
About 4-1 against.
Okay. The main one I hear is that a lot of people moved into the city so they could get away from farms and chickens. They look at his birds as dirty. They look at them as noisy. These are the arguments I hear, okay? Having studied transition cities and looking at trying to get resiliency, I understand the idea of having eggs. I personally probably wouldn't eat eggs if I watched it come out of a chicken, or I raised chickens to do that. I'm one of these people who like the food to not look like the animal. Give me a hamburger, don't give me the cow. Some of the other issues, I think the main one is noise and the concept that they're dirty. The next one, as I said, the conversation I had this past week was the chicken coop itself. They're usually fairly homemade. They probably don't fit in anybody's idea of suburbia or downtown living. Although I've been to the urban chicken site and the city chicken site and have all different types of chicken tractors and arcs, etc. My other concern, my biggest argument I have is that we, as was mentioned earlier, is that we don't have a good control on the dogs right now. I am loath to add another species if we don't have a mechanism to deal with it. Short of rent a ferret, so here's a ferret, there's the chickens, go. But that's probably not the solution most people want to deal with their neighbors on that level. What? So, John, do you have any other reasons you hear?
I think you did very well. Other than
Okay.
the fact that it's currently against code. It's required to be 100 feet from the property line to have a chicken coop in your yard, and I don't see many people with 1
Well, okay.
They can't hear him.
Essentially, what he cited was the section of the code that says you have to have, a chicken coop has to be 100 feet from any lot line. That pretty much eliminates most 100-foot by 50-foot lots or 150-foot by 50-foot lots, the normal city lot. That's how the code is set up right now. I think many people thought that was allowed because we changed the ordinance about gardening as a permitted accessory use, permitted use in R1s, and they talked about caged birds. I went back after having, I got an email just earlier today about chickens. And essentially I went back and looked at the minutes from the January 25th meeting, City Council meeting, where we decided that caged birds were not chickens at the time, and that they would, Mr. Councilman Butler, and I actually thought Chris Fowler would eventually address this on some level. Again, to my mind, I would want a mechanism how to deal with somebody who doesn't want chickens next door. That to me is the default right there. The concept if you want chickens in farmhouse, there's always the great outdoors and outside the city. In terms of trying to make it so we don't get in our cars and drive to and from suburbia or exurbia or whatever you want to call it, I can see the idea of having chickens inside. But again, we need to be dealing with the mechanism if they don't fit. Because if you talk about 50 people who raise chickens, probably there's going to be 50 different ways and styles people raise chickens. Some chickens will be raised quite well. They'll be with pink bows in their heads, and they'll be and pristine air-conditioned condo coops. On the other hand, somebody's going to sit there and they're going to let the thing sit there for a week and go on a vacation, and they're going to cook. Years ago, I lived in Washington County. The guy had a greenhouse where he heated with the chickens, and he left for a month because he was a contracted electrician. It was ugly. The chickens were gone. They were little piles of feathers. So what happens when somebody doesn't take care of their chickens? What happens if somebody's chickens are getting out and dealing with some other people's stuff? And that's all I really have to say about that. Unless, of course, you want to beat it to death. Oh, I went to Mayor's Association meeting last Thursday. I raised my hand and said, what do you guys do about chickens? I really did. They all, half of them laughed, and most of them said, we don't allow them, period. The other smaller villages, they don't have a problem because they're peripheral to the country anyway.
Thank you, Mayor Wiley. You've been very prolific tonight. We have about 20 questions, and so here's number 2. This is not necessarily easier, it's just the second one. This is the order in which they came in. Given the massive increase in fees and charges for basic services in Athens, and given the lack of any evidence of belt-tightening by the municipal government, why should any citizen consider voting for an income tax increase or any other tax increase sponsored and supported by the city? Now there's a challenge. Pardon me.
Can we see that? Ellsworth?
Yeah, and then I'll take it over there pretty soon for Ron.
Okay. Massive increase in fees and charges for basic services. I know we increased our recycling fee just recently. The tendency is I've gone to Mayor Association and say, what do you do about fees? And incrementally, you want to do it a little bit at a time. Running civilization costs more, period. That's where we are. We're in a civilization. Maybe if we were more sustainable, chickens in the yard, everybody just grew their own food on their 150 by 50 lot, wouldn't be an issue. But infrastructure costs money, police costs money, services cost money, fire costs money. Let's see, I think we're running about 3% for most employees. Hopefully we can change that in the next round of negotiations with the unions because of where the economy is. Nancy's making faces at me for something like...
I thought you could tell them what you've done as an administration to save money, because it is not true. You have not tightened.
Well, we have tightened bills, and she's writing them all down right there. I have a tendency to forget all the accomplishments. I'm the half-empty guy, glass half empty. Mostly I know that we have been trying to tighten the belt. We did when we started the first system when we went to $4 a gallon of gas. We no longer have citizens driving vehicles, city vehicles home anymore, as my service safety director can attest to that. And everybody else is not happy about it. We do have some that are listed as canine units. We have 3 cars that go home right now versus the 17 we started with. We have tightened belts in terms of we have shortened our bus route to keep it within the city, unfortunately. That's a loss of services. I'm trying to think what other ones we have here. Oh, yeah, consolidation of public works. Okay, we did do that too. That was a savings, and also coordination of between, originally we had a water department and water sewer department and street department. We've combined both of those to public works, engineering public works. We eliminated a director. We essentially tried coordinating the stuff better so we get better efficiency. But again, bottom line, you pay for services, and some of the services are necessary. I wouldn't say we're not tightening our belts. We realize when you talk about increased fees, I know one of the contentious issues is sandlot leak. The fact is, this is a public utility, public property that's being used by a service, and it costs us money to run that. We're trying to garnish those fees back. You want to cover more? You can talk.
I guess I'm a little taken aback by the terminology used here, massive increase in fees and charges for basic services. We did indeed increase our recycling by $1 per month. That actually is just taking effect in July. And the yard waste, that's $1.50 per bag. And that was, again, to offset the expenses we are already incurring in city services by providing that. We intend to have an annual 3% water rate increase, and that's across the board. Almost all municipalities do receive that. In order to get funding for upgrades, you have to prove that you are indeed keeping pace with the cost of the services you're producing. We've been under a soft hiring freeze as it is from City Council for basically over 2 years. We are indeed hiring for police and fire because we've heard you. You want to make sure that we maintain those real essential services. And that also is including a parking enforcement officer because they essentially pay for themselves. So.
Again, most of the staff we've been hiring are replacements. We had retirement, we have illnesses. I just swore in a new fire captain coming up from the ranks. We're just doing testing for a new fireman. This was one of the issues last year, getting these people in place. Again, I don't see ourselves as being massively expensive. If you say we want to give up something, then you have to say, what do we give up? I have a wish list of what people would like to see. They'd like to see more parks. They'd like to see better cleaning of the facilities. They'd like to see better streets. These are things that cost money to run. One of the mandates I've been giving to the administration is to chase down grants for many of the capital improvements. We realize we have a pool that's at the tail end of its lifespan. Is that a necessity? Do we need a pool? Do we need a pool? We've got a whole river. We can just jump in the river. We have a ladder truck, fire ladder truck, that's on the tail end of its lifespan. We're saving money for that. We're chasing grants for that. Hopefully we can get a grant and put them both together. I think we have about $400,000 stuffed away under our mattress for the ladder truck, for $1 million ladder truck. The bus service, is that necessary? Well, most of us drive. We get money, or we get 90%, let's take it back. We get about 70% of that from the state and the feds to do a bus service. Do we need a bus service? Should we have a bus service? Where are we going to go in the future with this type of stuff? The replacement levy, again, drive around, look at the roads. Call them in. If you see a pothole, call it in. This is the hot mix time. This is time to fix the roads. Where the roundabout was 90%, 80% funded by the state, ODOT. It's a problem area. Jeff Hill is issue 1. I think that's about 80%, 74% covered from public works money. We're going to also chase some money to do North Court. Mm-hmm. And I'll leave it at that. It's your choice. You vote. And then you decide what you don't want to see.
Thank you. 3 questions that deal with wellhead protection. And after I read the question, I'll give it to you in writing, and then I'll run the last one over to Ron. So here we go. 3 on wellhead protection. With the use of the wellhead protection areas by the university, the Ball League, and the gardeners at the West State Street Park and the hospital, and the resulting pollution from cars, etc., what is the city's plan to get this area and the one around the hospital, where there are also wells in hand, to actually protect the wellhead?
Actually, I'm probably going to defer to Paula on this. She's part of the Wellhead Committee, Safety Committee.
We are protecting our wellhead. That's indeed what we're doing. Uses that are defined and are in use now in terms of a baseball field or gardening, or what were some of the others?
Parking.
The parking of the cars.
Community garden, yeah.
Community gardens. We have had, we've had this looked into. There is no concern at this time. We had an issue actually at the gardening area regarding the hose use and the water, having groundwater use. We've put in backflow preventers, so that's all ready to go. Everybody can continue to garden. We meet on a biweekly basis to discuss projects that are upcoming. We have ongoing monitoring. That is, we have the reports back from that. Right now, our water tables are safe. We plan on continuing to maintain that. When you ask about the hospital and the university, they're not using any chemicals on their lawn down there. These things are all investigated. We have an inventory of every activity that's in the wellhead protection area. And we are attempting to locate additional land to drill new wells. So.
Let me add, you should have received in the mail your water report just
CCR.
recently, right?
The customer confidence consumer
Yeah.
report.
Okay, and that's part of the education. If you look at it, it talks about wellhead protection, what to do and what not to do. This is part of the project of just making sure we're safe and the water is drinkable.
Okay, another wellhead one. The purchase of the land across the river from the wellheads is a great move for a backup plan. The purchase of this land brings together unlikely allies to want to see this happen, including the Sandlot folks, the city, the gardeners, and the university.
Hope Farm?
Whoops.
I think that's what they were told.
Oh, there's another piece of it. It's a two-piece question here. This front part and this back part here.
Hope. I think that's the Hope.
When you discuss this, there's actually two pieces of property that have been up for grabs right now. One, of course, is the University Estates, which obviously did not happen. What was it called? Acropolis Associates or something like that. Another organization has snapped it up. We were in the line to actually purchase it upon foreclosure. The other piece of property I think you're talking about is the Hope, what do you call it?
It's part of the old Hope Farm.
Hope Farm. This is across the railroad trestle. We are trying to look at that as a possibility to extend our bike path as a spur in that general direction, as well as use it possibly for parking or, if not, / well area, depending on what we see. We'll have to, of course, do appraisals on it, and that's in process right now. That's in a discussion phase. One of the other things to realize, of course, when we talk about protecting a wellhead, I mentioned in passing the salt bin. We're going to spend $250,000 on a salt bin, which upped the price because we decided that we need to have a cap on any of the permeable area, and we're going to be using some kind of exotic clay to make sure it doesn't permeate down to the well table. So we're spending money to do this right, and this is ongoing all the time. We have some good people on the wellhead protection committee. I don't even spend time dealing with it because I know between Crystal, Mike Cooper, and Paula, it's in good hands. We have a consultant on hand. We have retained with Egon Associates to evaluate what goes on and give us a professional critique of this whenever possible. Next question.
Here's one whose context is the same one, and I don't know, I can't identify all the references. Another question is, did the recent purchase of this land, what you've been trying to address there, I think, did the recent purchase of this land by the attorney of the entity over there make this less likely? Now there's a tough one.
Okay, that actually probably references the idea that this land we're talking about is the UE estate land. We will probably not be able to purchase it. We may enter an agreement. I think the original development agreement in 2000 gave us an option to purchase some land for potential well placement, if my memory is correct. That was from 2000, though. That's one that's been gone through several reiterations, mediations, lawsuits. Anybody who purchases the land has to abide by the wellhead protection. That was part of the 2000 agreement, development agreement. So there will be always held to that standards. Nobody can really do anything in the wellhead protection area that is not legal. The names may change, but the restrictions still apply. And I have to actually thank Carol Patterson, who spearheaded the wellhead protection legislation at that time. And I mentioned because really they have to drink the same water. We can hold them to the same standards. Purchasing land is probably not going to happen. Again, this weighs out to the previous question. Do we just throw money at things? Well, it was possible to throw money at things, and I had my druthers, we'd buy the whole area, but it's not going to happen, and we don't have the money to do that. I hope I answered that question.
I'm not listening to your answers as much as getting focused on the next one, so I can't answer that question. Okay, here's the next one. We're going to change the topic. Regarding pesticide application in the city. If the city is applying chemicals close to our property and we don't want this to be in close proximity to our property or living areas, can an arrangement be made to cease this activity? Also, how can the community prevent spraying in public spaces? And can the city provide a schedule of where, when, and what spraying will be done? That might be two questions combined by my superior staff over here. Probably three questions.
Okay, actually, you may want to just pass it directly to our
Speaking of superior staff.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay.
Give them the mic, too.
Put down the keyboard. Here, why don't I'll sit close by here.
I had to read this because I was typing. I was trying to listen. Regarding the first part, if you're a resident and you don't want anyone to spray herbicide around your property, make the request, and then as long as you're maintaining the property, okay. What we spray is residential grade Roundup. That's what gets sprayed in the community, aside from the wellhead protection area, where we do not spray anything. So if you're not comfortable with residential grade Roundup, give me a call, and we'll make arrangements as long as you can keep the weeds down and not have code come and ask you to mow. That would be fine. Community prevents spraying in public spaces. We do not spray around the park. We do have a commercial applicator in the Parks and Recreation world. However, to my knowledge, there is no spraying going on. Everything is done via mowers and weed eaters. So in the parks, there's no spraying. The street department, public works department does spray along the guardrails, as I said earlier, and some signs. But around the municipal buildings and things of that nature, or lands of buildings, they don't spray either. So there may not be as much spraying going on as you may think. You just might see some of the things that we have sprayed and think that there is more going on. We do think of ways not to spray. If we can avoid spraying, we won't. So take that into consideration as well. And can the city provide a schedule where, when, and what spraying will be done? Yes. I received that information from our Public Works Department prior to spraying, so that I'm in the know. And the Ohio Department of Agriculture requires that the commercial applicator does have a schedule what is going to be sprayed on any given day. And if you're concerned about it, again, we can make some kind of arrangement where we can do a public press release or something like that.
Put it on the website.
Where we're going to spray.
Put it on the website.
Okay.
I got to take notes on what I just said.
I should filibuster and give you the chance, but I won't because, well, 70 of you are more important than one hustling here. Okay. What is the present state of the landlord-tenant education form? Are landlords, quote, educating, unquote, their tenants in code, trash, noise, and fire laws? Tenants often say they have never heard of the rules. Want me to run it here? I'll
Run it to John.
Okay. You get the mic also.
Last year, we had a very high compliance with people turning in, the landlords turning in the landlord-tenant occupancy forms. I think we only had 20 people or 20 forms that did not get turned in throughout the entire city. Whether those tenant or landlords are informing the tenants or not, we can't really say. It is the responsibility of them to present it to the tenants, and the landlord does have to sign that says that he is presenting it to the tenants, but the tenants are not obligated to have to sign the form, so therefore we don't really know how much of the information is being given to them, but we do know we're getting very high compliance on the forms coming back in. So hopefully that answers that question.
Let me add that we can do all the forms, but if they're just doing it, for the forms and no more, it's not going to perk down to the tenant. And many of the tenants, of course, they have lots of things to do. When somebody's moving in, there's no grade attached to this for the students who's moving in. They've got syllabus, they've got enrollment, they've got everything to do. This is something that probably falls really far down on their priority list. We have conversations with the community assistants at the University of, Residential Life?
Off-campus.
Off-campus living. I thought they changed that name again. Okay. Last year, of course, they re-upped the amount of community assistants. They've had more last year than they had the year before. I hope that trend continues. That's an educational component done by the university for the university students, peer-to-peer, and it helps a lot. There's only 15, 20 of them to the 15,000 students or rentals that are out there. So there's a high ratio of what they need to know and not need to know. I know many of you who have been in college probably know their priorities when you were in college as well. This was something that was very low down as part of the college experience to live in an animal health situation. They don't have it's part, you're young and you can put up with a lot of views, so therefore they come or lack of comfort. The market is such that some of the landlords do take advantage of this, but the fact is they're supposed to be doing it properly, informing the tenants. And that's the thrust of it. It's an educational thing. That's what we're trying for, and we do our best.
I'd just like to say that I've spoken with different landlords who have told me they sit down, they read it in detail, and they go over that with their prospective tenants. Then, because sometimes they're signing a lease a year in advance, they repeat that when they're actually giving the keys when the change happens. So there are landlords out there who are indeed, following that to the letter of the law. In addition, on university off-campus housing, we will provide the information to them, and they put it in their newsletters, and the kids all receive that. It's kind of canvassed across in the student neighborhood areas. So they're getting multiple reminders.
Thank you. Okay, how about annexation? Do you have any plan to promote annexation, especially along Route 50 to Albany, for income growth, infrastructure, and more balanced voting purposes?
No, not really. That's a short question. Annexation in that general direction is what was actually pointed out or highlighted in the comprehensive plan, the city comprehensive plan. At this point, we're pretty much dealing with our annexed portions we have right now. We're focused on that. To go into the general direction of 50, of course, has infrastructure limitations. Remember, at the start of this discussion, I talked about how do we look at regional criteria, in other words, helping the outside cities, outside community, and a county. I have had discussions with, I see Larry Payne over there, about extending sewer services out in that general direction. I've polled some other cities on how they deal with county, township, and city interactions with infrastructure. Realizing, of course, that this is the question. Do you actually extend services outside the city? Do you give up your major hammer for annexation, which is usually sewer at this point? These things have to be worked out. It's a philosophical question as well as a nuts and bolts. How does one pay for this type of stuff? Realize we service water to the plains. We charge them a surcharge. I've looked at other schedules where if the infrastructure is taken over by the county or the township, they would actually deal with the infrastructure in terms of sewer, and they get a reduction because we just service the treatment of the sewer. This is one aspect of in lieu of annexation. Does it help our bottom line as income tax? Probably not, because we are really charging twin tax for people who work inside the city. At this point, I have no high plans to annex major portions of the surrounding area. I think the last annexation was a couple of lots on Old Peach Ridge, and I think that's been the last annexation I can think of. Bits and pieces, but we have our hands full right now servicing what we have. Again, we're not in a, the economy's not in a growth stage right now, so I don't expect to see a lot of more of some evil-like swallowing of city and parts of Plains or whatever, or Canaanville.
Thank you. How about talking about parking garage? Do you have any plans to build another parking garage alone with Ohio University or with Athens County?
No, I haven't had any discussions of that nature. Right now, I'm focusing on trying to do some repairs on our present parking garage. I'd like to do it piecemeal, a part at a time. I know I'm going to have to spend some money to do an evaluation of this structure. It hasn't been done in about 10 years. It needs to be reviewed. As it stands now, our parking garage is not entirely full most of the time as is. I know the university's plan, the vision plan from 2005, I believe it is. Somewhere it had talked about parking garages, building them on campus. But we have not been approached by the university on that, and I don't know how we'd share that at this point. Any other insight?
There have been just some, brief discussions about possible developments, and I think you've seen it, from Ohio University and some other things in the paper, about a corridor entrance around Stimson Avenue and what they may look into in terms of some private-public partnership in terms of development, housing, and also parking. I mean, parking's an issue, but it's not anywhere, not even really to conceptual drawings or anything at this time.
Okay, we're going to change the subject again, and our editors have put in a word or two which we think one needs, and we think this is proper. So, have you taken steps to close the notch in the old railroad roadbed behind the American Legion when we have the next flood? If we didn't get that context straight, the location straight, let me know. So let's read it again. Have you taken steps to close the notch in the old railroad roadbed behind the American Legion when we have the next flood?
This is the notch is actually talking about where the bike path cuts through the old railroad bed between, is it Blick or Blue Line? Blue Line. This does create a hazard, and I think it was 2005 or 4, the water went through there. Flooded Blick, which is actually lower than the rest of the area, and went through. We've taken steps to, if we anticipate that problem, we have taken steps to actually add what they call them Jersey barriers. I think that's the plan is. This is part of the natural hazards mitigation plan, is to drop a barrier in between there to slow it down. We would not rate, that barrier would not be the height of the present railroad bed, but if it goes over the top of the railroad bed, we're really in trouble. But the intent is we watch it. We have about a 6-hour lag time between the water flood gauge in Enterprise at the Hocking, which I watch all the time when it starts to rain a lot. You can go online and look at the water gauge at Enterprise and say, okay, 3 to 4 hours down, 5 hours down, it's going to be the water gauge in Hocking at Athens here is going to be up. So we have some lag time to deal with that. We do have contingency plans because I've discussed them. I don't think I've reviewed them lately because we haven't had that problem lately. But that has been addressed and discussed. Anything you want to add?
We were seeking a more permanent solution to that area, trying to tap into some. Hocking Conservancy District actually has some funds, but their funds are locked up to do a Logan project at this time. So that's still there. It's just we're waiting on our turn, as it were.
Okay, we've got 2 questions on the roundabout.
Oh, boy.
Here's a they. Why could they not build the roundabout in 2 phases, left and right, to keep the traffic flowing down and up Richland?
Do you want to address this now?
I'm not the engineer.
And the engineer's not here. I think we're trying to be get it done as fast as possible. I think we have to look at construction versus traffic conflicts that occur. I think we got 3 phases going right now. The first phase, of course, impacted the west side of 682. It's been closed and it's still closed. The second one, of course, now is closed Richland Avenue, which has impacted everybody on Richland Avenue, which I've heard about. And I went to C&E Hardware last week, and they said, here comes the mayor. We've got to tell them about what's going on. Again, the impact there is that the stores are being impacted, travel is being impacted. We set this up so the phase 2, which involved closing Richland, would be after school let out. We are cognizant of the fact 20,000 students drifting in and out we need to deal with. We have closeout dates, opening dates for various events.
We call it blackout days.
Blackout
Yes.
dates. I knew there was a term for that. Fortunately, she takes care of all the details on this. Good service safety director, and I have to give kudos to her. The idea there is we're trying to get it done as fast as possible. There will be impacts. Every time we do construction, there's impacts. The only ones that don't impact are something like Jeff Hill that has been closed already. If you remember Union Street, West Union, it was impacting the people living on that, the shops on West Union when we did the bridge, when we did the widening of that street as well. There will be impacts with this that take place. It's a coordination between ODOT, how they wanted to do it, Shelley and Sands, our engineer, and of course the university and all the players involved, because realize we're even going to have a Pelotonia coming through, and that's it. We have events that are occurring all the time, and there's no convenient time to say we can leave this open and leave this and close this. I got an email last Tuesday or Wednesday. Somebody wanted us to change the traffic pattern for a wedding on the Ridges. It's not doable. It's just, I just can't wave a wand and tell these guys to lay down track and let people drive through just for the duration. It's an inconvenience, but the fact is, if the street wasn't repaired, the intersection wasn't repaired, it'd be an inconvenience as well. And everybody knows what the bridge looked like. I mean, we were hearing it for the past 3 years while it was just like a dotted mess of potholes.
Well, here's another one on the roundabout for you and your traffic engineer. Is it clear that the roundabout will not cause backup on the bridge for northbound traffic? If this happens, is there a remedy in sight? Northbound traffic.
Northbound traffic coming from Richland, I assume northbound.
It just says northbound.
I think that's
read
what
it
they mean
again.
from the
Is
south
it clear
side.
that the roundabout will not cause backup on the bridge for northbound traffic? Sounds like it's exiting the roundabout and heading north.
Oh, Schaefer. That's a good question. I don't know.
Schaefer and
Richland.
South Green Drive is a failed intersection. There it is. We don't have the area there for a roundabout.
They talked about that at one time. Watch out.
But just to be totally upfront, it has failed. The roundabout should move smoothly. It's not going to move people through move out or high event weekends. Are we going to have police officers down there during that? Yes, we will. I mean, it's no, convocation games. You cannot build, I can't imagine how huge it would be if we tried to build it for those kind of singular events that we have in a year. But it should move regular traffic, meaning when school's in session and everybody's working, and flow smoothly. Yes, will you get off the nice roundabout and then wind up waiting for the Schaefer Street light to turn? Yes. I talked with Andy Stone. He plans on doing some real tweaking and watching how these patterns move once it's in place, so that we can have that changed. I don't know if you noticed, but in the summertime, South Green Drive doesn't have near the length of time it does during, regular school in session. So.
And at the inception of this, we did the modeling for when a Peden Stadium would get out or the Convo would get out, and to look at that. And I think in the exiting part, we would require somebody to actually do traffic control. But that's no different than what's occurring right now at any event of this nature. Again, you just can't do it. There's not enough lanes to do everything for the peak.
I was like a student in your class, talking with my friends. You're finished with that one?
Yes.
Okay, this goes back to parking on Blick Avenue. I own the only parking lot on Blick Avenue, and just this morning, I had to tow a vehicle visiting one of those property owners who received, quote, one of those letters, unquote. Why has the city put the onus on me to keep the property owners within adequate parking off my property?
When you have a private parking lot, the burden does fall on you to, have that policed, as it were, on your own. For example, we lease the College Street lot, and it is up to each individual parking space person that if somebody's in their space, the sign's right up there on who they call for a tow. But I do want to say that I think what John has done in terms of alerting the developer, and it sounds like maybe we need to go back to that to make sure that that doesn't continue to occur.
Most likely, whoever got towed will not do it again, too.
It's a pretty expensive lesson.
Here's a challenge.
These have been softballs?
Pardon?
These have been softballs?
Probably not.
Well, yes, they have.
Okay.
Okay. Does Athens recognize that growth in a finite planet is impossible? If so, what do they do about it?
This is, what's the question again? Hold on a second.
Yes,
here.
go right ahead.
Does Athens recognize that growth, Athens being all the population of a finite planet, is impossible? If so, what can they do about it? Athens as a city, Athens as administration. The city, well, we're in Western civilization that's predicated to growth, unfortunately, if we want to get philosophical about this. The best bet we can do is make sure that we get it as efficient as possible in our use of resources. And that sounds very laudable and very vague. I could say, kill your babies. That's one way to do it too. But that's not practical, and it's not sensible. I don't know what to do out of resources. The lights are burning right now. As an American, as somebody on the Western Hemisphere, Western civilization, we consume more than we generated, period. I think I went to an exercise 2 years ago with Sonia Marcus, where there's a website there where you plug in all your energy efficiencies. Is your house insulated? How much energy you use? Do you drive? Do you walk? And then it calculates how many planets, if everybody on the planet used how many planets you'd need to supply the people. But the first question is, where do you live? And it says United States. And as soon as you put that in, it doesn't matter what you do. You're using more than one planet's worth of energy and consuming more resources. That's us. And many years ago, there's a book by John Bruner called Sheep Look Up, I believe it is, where the solution for the planet was to get rid of the top, and this is 70 years ago, top 250 million consumers, which actually was the population of the United States. Well, maybe it was Stands on Zanzibar. I forget which science fiction it was of theirs. Of course, the end of the book is that the people in England can smell America burning. And that's the bottom line. You look at what's going on in the Gulf. How do we fix this? We're all addicted. How many of you actually rode here? How many people bicycled here and walked here?
All right,
there you go. Okay. That's why we got a bike plan. We're trying to make this a little bit better. We're trying to make ourselves healthy. That's why we have a safe route to school plan. So we have healthy kids and we don't consume the planet's energy. We try, but it's going to take time. It takes a lifestyle changes. The coat I wear, I don't know, it's made someplace in China or something like that. So it had to travel farther than I'll ever travel. Most of the stuff we do, it does that. Most of the food we consume does that. It's a good challenge. Everybody should live it because as administration, I've got 170 employees. I don't think they're going to make a dent in it.
Thank you.
Here you go.
Why is there no stop sign at the intersection of Stimson and the road for Mill Street Village?
I thought we got that
We're
fixed.
supposed to repair that. There was one.
There was one last year. We put one in. It's a private road. Its stop sign's been getting bad on it. It disappeared. a month ago, and it should have been done. And I thought there was some work requisition for it, and we'll get on that. Unless it disappeared again.
Lordy, lordy.
Actually, this was brought up about a year and a half ago, because that is not a platted road. It is actually a private road. It's the one going from Mill to Stimson, zigzagging around Mill Street Village. It seems to be a cut-through. It has changed the dynamics of the Mill Street Elliott intersection, which used to be another congested intersection. We do not maintain that road, to my knowledge. We better not. But we did have a stop sign put there because it was a problem.
We're supposed to be up for GOBA, so I'm concerned. So
Yeah. This was actually brought up at a neighborhood association meeting last month, and I thought that got worked on. So, and she's actually texting somebody who's going to deal with it real quick. Does that answer your question? We'll get it done.
Thank you. Here's, with respect to the noise ordinance, please tell me what the current noise ordinance says and clarify if it is a law or not. Because I have repeatedly been told that when the police go to a house to check on a noise complaint, that it is up to, quote, police discretion, unquote. So, does this mean it is a law or not? Am I protected or not?
I'm going to give this to Chief Mayor, or Meyer.
Mayor's Mayor.
Yes, it is a law. It is enforceable to a certain extent. The current court requires us to give warnings to individuals prior to 10 o'clock, Sunday night through Thursday night, midnight on the other 2 nights. We're required to give a warning. The court prefers that we give a warning after those times, but we're not required to. After that time, it's prima facie, which means just on the face of it, it's a violation, if it involves an amplified sound source, stereo, amplified drums, guitars, whatever the case might be. If it's amplified by electronic means, it's prima facie that it's a violation. The officers can react to that as it stands. And we do have officers that do that. It's very common for after a major party, such as Palmer, meals like that, come midnight, a team of officers go down the street, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off, and have everybody shut them down right there at that time. We are looking at doing that this coming fall and having an officer or two dedicated to just do that after those time periods and go around for amplified music situations and advise them to turn it down or turn it off, whatever the case might be. After so many times of having to do that, trying to keep track of it, we may not give them warnings anymore. We might just after that 10 or midnight start dropping tickets off, not looking for complaints. Prior to 10 o'clock and midnight, we have to have a complaint. There has to be some citizen that has complained about the noise that is bothering somebody in the community. Noise can't bother us. Just like somebody cussing at us can't bother us. So we can't give people tickets for that, okay? So we have to have a citizen complaint. It's only on the prima facie ones where we can act without a citizen complaint. Again, those are regulated to after 10 o'clock and midnight when those fall in place. Hope I answered that. We're bound by the way the court rules and what they require. And so sort of a change in the ordinance as we are. But again, this fall we're going to try and take a new approach, a new tack, and we're developing a educational program to let the community and the students know how we're going to approach this. And we're going to take the approach that it's prima facie after 10 o'clock and after midnight, and we'll be getting warnings out, and we'll be getting citations out after that time period, using that unit out there patrolling in the community areas.
Thank you, Chief. And mentioning that the Chief works with neighborhood associations and students from Student Senate and various other parts of the citizenry to get a new ordinance put in place. It's been tabled till September. It is 06110 if you need to know about it. I believe the draft is on the city website, so you can see the changes that have occurred.
I don't know if you want me to say what I have to say. Right now, the existing noise ordinance, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, is in effect 24/7. It's
On complaint.
right on complaint. This revised and the revision that the students have agreed to in terms of the number of warnings and what have you complaint-based only. That's correct?
So, as I say, it'll be started up in September, so there'll be everybody here. And when I say everybody, it means students and residents. So everybody is participating in this. It behooves you to look at it and see what it means.
Thank you. Just for the sake of a scorecard, that was number 15 out of 21, I think, that have been submitted. So we're cranking right along. We're getting a lot of democracy and government in action tonight. We had a lot of fine questions. And here's the next one. As part of the ongoing sidewalk renovation, would it be possible to work on decreasing the number of sidewalks with steps, especially 1 or 2 steps, as at College and State, and thereby increase accessibility?
They have to be.
Anything we would do would have to be.
With that. The discussion, of course, right now is that try eliminating steps. We have to do that to make it ADA accessible. One of the issues that occur at that point, though, is the actual slope, and they rise to run in terms of that. We live on a very hilly area, and sometimes we're limited what we can do. I think the effort is to make it, whenever we rebuild a sidewalk and do a sidewalk, is to make it more accessible. The limitation there, of course, is the where you're talking about. I mean, we're looking right now at Jeff Hill, for instance. I mean, you could say, let's get rid of the steps at Jeff Hill, but it'd be very difficult for somebody in a wheelchair to get up and down. It's an issue. It is. I mean, that's the topography of Athens. We're trying to put these things in place. We have, that's why we have an engineer on board right now. I mean, that's why we're utilizing Andy Stone to look at this stuff and create a series of standards. It's an effort. I don't know how else to make it better, except maybe level the hills, which we love so much. Good.
Thank you. Here are 2 questions that are so similar, they're on 1 sheet of paper. So, what concrete steps are being taken to implement the bicycle and pedestrian goals? And why can't students ride with traffic as I did growing up in Athens? I presume that means bicycles. Here you go.
Why can't students ride with traffic as I did growing up? I think you can ride with traffic as long as you follow the traffic rules.
Pardon me?
Why do they go on the other side, go the wrong way? I think it's probably...
Oh, you mean like when we grew up?
Oh, why don't they follow the rules?
That's exactly right.
Oh.
That's answered in the whereas, there isn't.
That's because they're doing something illegal and stupid. What can you say? I don't know. Again, we had his name, Norm Cox, was here for the plan that we put together. One of the things he pointed out is that when you drive, you get a license. Pedestrians and bicyclists, as long as you can balance on a bicycle, there's a whole level of expertise there. There's ones that follow the rules, some that don't follow the rules on purpose, some that are ignorant of the rules. In theory, they may have been trained that. I know every year we have a bicycle, there's a rodeo at the community center here, where the kids learn how to follow traffic rules. It may not stick till age 20 or 22. I've seen people riding the wrong way on Court Street. I've seen people riding the wrong way on First Street. I've almost clobbered somebody riding in the dark in the wrong way on First Street. They almost ended up to be a hood on them in my truck. And I'd be in the right, I mean, it's totally dark, splat. Why can't students ride with traffic as I did growing up? Well, I guess I don't know what the answer to that is. Concrete steps for bettering the bike implementation. That was part of the discussion. Originally, when we were talking about actually changing the levy for the streets levy, the renewal, part of the issue was to actually try and put a 0.2 extra income tax levy to actually do streets, to do bike implementation and pedestrian implementation of those as the plan. It was decided that might end up to be a standalone issue on a ballot. Mostly because that way we'd find out the feeling of what people want to do about bike and ped plans out there. I don't know if you've got a chance to read the plan. I think I've gotten halfway through and I lent it to somebody and didn't get it back. It's about 142 pages. Okay, lots of good maps, lots of good ideas. Some of them will be very cheap and easy to do. Some will be expensive. We're going to try working on that. I don't know which one's first. I'm going to leave it to actually the planner and the engineer to decide which the low-hanging fruit are at this point. We have Yes,
Yes.
go ahead.
Thought maybe I was getting off the hook tonight. We're actually this summer, Andy Stone and I are going to begin a project to to basically canvass all of the city streets to identify the condition of all of our sidewalks, to determine the width of them, whether they are in good condition, poor condition, mediocre condition, or whether they don't exist. Once we have that done, then we're going to try to figure out a way with which to fund sidewalk improvements, just like the mayor just talked about. We're also applying for grants. We look for any grant we can in relation to bicycle and pedestrians. We just talked with Councilman Gowthie this morning about an opportunity. Andy and I talked about it further today, and we're going to look to apply for ODOT or federal DOT funding for pedestrian crossings as well as side or bike path spurs. So we'll try to get some of that accomplished for the city.
Putting in the roundabout. We're putting a tunnel in there
The
for
roundabout.
the pedestrians and bicyclists.
We also have, we've been awarded a grant to
Bike path
connect
extension.
the bike path over the Hocking River towards, we've already spoken about that, the Hoon
Hope.
Farm.
Hope
Hope
Farm, yeah.
We
property.
received the award?
I believe we did.
That
Am I
might have just
incorrect?
happened. So
I hope
hopefully
so.
we'll
Trying for
receive
that one. I think that's all we have on it right now. The county is applying to get a spur connecting the Athens High School to the bike path. That is in a second review right now because it does cross through the Eclipse Company town, but the county has worked on that. We're getting very positive response back that should be awarded. The county applied to extend up further along East State to County Road 24. That was not awarded in this cycle, but
What's the easement going
we
through
should
right
be
now
getting that
with the
at some point.
restricted?
The state has been very favorable to Athens with bicycle planning, so.
Okay. It's like any plan. It's a work in progress. It'll continue going. So I'm more of a pedestrian person than a bicyclist, so I'm cognizant of the fact that I want areas to link up. Again, the second phase of this Safe Route to School will be stairways. I don't know when the timetable we start constructing that. In fact, I don't even know when we're doing the crosswalks on Wallace and everything. Do you know?
It should all be done this summer, but
Okay.
Wallace?
By the Eastern
Oh,
Elementary.
right. Yes, we're short.
Okay, here's the next one. Mill Street. Mill Street is the main thoroughfare to 4 churches. It should not be subject to student beer can litter on Sunday mornings.
We have a litter control officer. That's why you pay your $1 at the utility bills to get the stuff cleaned up as fast as possible. He's out there on the weekends during the school year. He goes out 8 o'clock, starts pounding on the doors to get them to clean up. If they don't clean up, they proceed to get a litter fine in accelerating rates of $20, $40, $60, $80 to $100. Somewhere along the line, they start getting the message. If he can get them woken up in time. I know the churches go open earlier, and of course this is part of where the student body has fun. Do you want to add anything, John? Okay. It's an effort. It's ongoing, educating the students. We're part of the educational mission for the university as well as the city. And speaking of which, of course, I'd like to give kudos to the university for helping us out, both the manpower for the police as well as the CAs that are out there. We're working together as best possible.
Okay, how can food security be made part of the comprehensive plan?
That's a good question. I guess the next thing to do is start adding it into it, like food security. I guess the first place to do is either go to council or start at the planning commission, city planning commission, and add it. I know the comprehensive plan of review advisory discussed where we are. I guess the next step would be, their task would be actually say what needs to be changed along the way. And I see a nod from Ed. Do you want to say something, Ed? I could put you on the spot.
Back to the volunteers and the volunteer committees. So-
Yeah, and actually, this is the thing, is that there are things that have changed over time with what we want to focus on. Go ahead, Ed.
as indicated, one of the problems with the comprehensive plan is that it is getting aged and it needs to be changed. There are whole areas, green concerns, energy efficiency are just simply not in the plan because the basic plan was developed out of focus groups that really were held in 2001 and 2002. So there's a whole area there that needs to be added. It's a city council's responsibility to add it because they adopted the plan. They're the only ones who can change the plan. Now they work with the planning commission in order to do this, but the mayor is quite right. If you want to see things added, talk to your city council members.
And as I say, get involved with the advisory group too, because they're the ones looking at saying what the benchmarks are, where do we want to achieve, and what are we achieving. And if the focus changes, and it will, changes will happen on this. That's the whole idea of a plan. It's not a set in stone, it's a living document. What question, what number was that?
We've got two more questions.
Okay.
That was number 19. We've got 20 and 21. These are tough ones. I think I'll read this and hand it to you, but I've got a whole big long paragraph.
Okay.
And so this question is basically wanting a longer, more comprehensive answer back to the one about the ratio of rental housing to owner-occupied residences. So I'll read this out, try to do it slowly so you can comprehend it, put it in front of the mayor, and sit down and read the next big tough question. Many communities closely monitor the ratio of rental units to owner-occupied units. Athens has never attempted to do this. The current lopsided ratio of rentals to owner-occupied houses is frightening and must be addressed. Is there or can there be a strategy to control the runaway situation of no holds barred to buying houses and turning them into rental units? There are density and quality of life issues that are the consequence of a no-policy approach to buying and converting houses to the benefit of a few and the degradation of neighborhoods.
I'm looking at John with the idea that he may be able to address some of this. A lot of this has to do with 20 has got two of them here, okay? What you're trying to deal with, of course, is market forces. And I'd be the first one to recognize that because you can't restrict somebody from selling a house to someplace to somebody who wants it. I look at the growth of the university. They plan to grow. They plan to keep growing. We've been building complexes with the idea that this would make up the difference. It is not really occurring. I know the neighborhood associations have tried addressing this, in particular ANA, near Northside Neighborhood Association, which set themselves up with the concept of actually purchasing houses, restricting them, and selling them to homeowners. Policy-wise, I don't know what we could do to restrict somebody's ownership of and purchasing and selling of houses. We could push back at the university and say, please limit your enrollment. This is, again, the consequence of that is where our economy goes with this. We could push back and say they need to build their own apartment complexes, knowing full well that they do not have the money to do that. What I see in my neighborhood is pretty much a static state right now. Surprisingly, it's on the unfashionable west side of town, eclectic side of town. It's viewed by the students as actually too far from campus for some strange reason. It's pretty much in steady state for a while. I've been watching it. I watch my neighbors. I have actually, it was downzoned probably about 15, 16 years ago, almost 20 years ago, from an R2 duplex to single family. We have a series of duplexes grandfathered in. They're filled. We have empty residents right now, rentals right now. They don't seem to be turning into home ownership. I take that on myself because I think we should not be able to tell the difference between a homeowner occupancy and a rental. That's up to code to do, and I know code could be more stringent on that. All in all, according to the numbers that I think John was, I asked this question of John earlier, that we are actually The ratio is not changing dramatically, but there has been an uptick in terms of homeowners occupied housing. Am I correct in that, John?
Yes.
Okay. At the same time, the balance of it, we've been building more multi-apartment complexes to balance it out. Whether we can keep up, where there's enough room of infill. Realize the comprehensive plan, in its agedness now, talked about higher density. We're not starting to question whether that's a wise decision after having seen Palmer and Palmer Fest and all the activities that go on there. There's a limit to how much density we can get in one place. The alternative, of course, is to stress spreading them out and throwing them all over the neighborhoods. I don't really have a fast, hard, true plan for this. Again, of course, we'd be paddling uphill against the economy of the city. I imagine if we told the university to take all their students in, we'd also get a backlash on that, saying you're taking bread out of the mouths of the landlords. I do not have an easy solution for this. And I'd look to anybody else in my administration who could come with a better solution.
John wants to say something.
John?
I can add to help support the mayor's opinion on the stabilization. If I look right before I came here, 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I should say, we had 189 new rentals on our annual report that we noticed. I do not know how many of them were single-family houses versus new build or commercial. 2 years ago, it was down to 103. This past year, it was 29. So the numbers are dropping for stabilization. That may have something to do with some of the newer, bigger projects that have been built, but as of right now, things have stabilized. Out of the 29 that became single-family houses that became new rentals, there were another
6
single-family or rentals that went back to single-family houses. So that means 23 single-family houses that were converted to rentals in 2009. So hopefully the numbers are declining and stabilizing for a little while, and I hope it keeps going that way. Beverly just asked me what the ratio is. I think we are at about 70% on the number of single-family houses in the city that are rentals.
And it is a problem. I'm aware of the fact that we have issues in terms of how we get along. That was addressed at the last meeting. We had discussions about the integrity and vitality. I forget the terms actually for how to keep the neighborhoods alive. I think we have to, and then there was a town gown issue in terms of rentals. I think we have to recognize that the best way to make our city livable is to communicate with the short-term residents, I think was the term Captain Pyle used. We're all in this together in that sense as a city. If you feel that you have problems with your neighbor, talk to your neighbor. It's the best way to do it. I know we get tired of doing that. We may do it year in and year out. I get older, the freshmen don't. We all get older and the freshmen don't. At least they come in with, something different every year, and that's part of the excitement of the city too. I mean, that's why we're here, because we want both the excitement of a university town, the culture of a university town, and the downside, of course, is we have other sides of it too. Not that I'm saying it's going to, that makes it easy or proper. Again, we could say, I don't think we could restrict. I don't think it's even possible to restrict somebody selling and buying a selling house. I think that's just straight illegal. We could make it rigorous. The 1997 law about the one bedroom, one parking space was to prevent conversions, housing conversions. I know those who were on council a long time ago, Jim and Nancy, are aware of this. I watched it at the zoning board of appeals when it went through. What has it resulted in is paving over the entire backyards of some of these residences, just to make it work. That's a market for us. So you do something like that, we'll spring out some of this. I really can't add much more than that.
Well, in that case, we have one more challenge for you. This is the last one. Also, I've got some reading to do before you get the mic back. The mayor indicates that he meets monthly with the Ohio University administration, and the writer wonders whether this includes President McDavis. Apparently, OU is pleased with the growth of housing in the city. Why not? The university has neglected housing since the early 1990s. There does not appear to be any negotiations, pardon the singular quote, there does not appear to be any negotiations between the city and the university. Does the city of Athens have a strong negotiating team who can address issues with the university, such as housing? The university seems to be winning.
Okay. I meet monthly with President McDavis. We have a list of topics we go over. Sometimes it's planned well, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes there's issues that we agree on and disagree on. I can just bring up Bobcat Lane as one disagreement right off the top. Other ones, of course, we have no control over. They're within their own territory. We are brought in with and communicate with them quite regularly. My service safety director has weekly meetings with their counterpart of facilities management, mostly to deal with the nuts and bolts of what goes on in the city. So we coordinate. If you look at Jeff Hill right now, this is a mutual project where it's costing us about $300,000. They're putting a chiller line in that's going to cost about $600,000. We're coordinating as best we can. We have overlaps in terms of the roundabout right now, where there's steam tunnels, water lines, infrastructure questions are always going. My discussions with President McDavis usually center around what's his concerns, what's going on with the health of the university. As I say, monthly, we have met more often depending on what's going on in terms of things like festivals. I know we have several meetings planned this summer to deal with the street fest, we could call them, I guess, or street parties. I don't know when you can say who's winning. That almost seems like it's a confrontational thing. The fact is, they can't do without us. If we just, turned out our pockets and said, let's just incorporate our city and they can buy our wastewater treatment plant or the water treatment plant, they would not have the wherewithal to do it. At the same time, if they said, well, we're going to just leave and go to Albany, first of all, they don't have the wherewithal to do that too, but we would not be able to subsidize ourselves as in the style we have right now. We try working together. We try, if we disagree, we disagree. We leave the communication open as much as possible. I bring other members of my team in as needed if the conversation requires different expertise. They have brought us in on for advice as well, or at least to bring us into a loop of information. An example of that, of course, is the renovation of their dormitory or housing stock. They brought in, I believe Paul was involved in the conversation there. You were involved. When they put out requests for information on what kind of models they were looking at, and realize it's still up in the air, as you read in the paper, it's still being digested. This is an ongoing process all the time. We have meetings concerning, again, the infrastructure level. I don't go down to that level. There's actually even a lower level than that with the street crews, which I'm barely aware of. They borrow cups of sugar from each other all the time as needed. And when I say cups of sugar, I'm talking about large water valves, pieces of piping, and it's an informal arrangement. Say, you borrow, you lend, and we work together on that. And it doesn't have to come up to the city hall to do that. I know these guys on the street; they keep a good counting on that. They know when who's owes what favor. So that's the levels of communication that I know about. And as I say, peripheral. The communication, I try to leave open. I know he meets with neighborhood associations, President McDavis. He's been very open on that. I know he meets with, he's met with council several times, as often as possible. I think he's trying, we're trying. There will really be conflicts. We're not nimble, neither of us as entities are as nimble as we'd like to be, so sometimes we step on each other's toes. It's the nature of governments and organizations like this. The university is a universe of programs, departments, senates, faculty, administration, students, graduate students, programs, with a whole hodgepodge of needs and wants. The city, we work a little bit tighter than that, but that's because we're smaller and we have a different thrust and goal as services. And unless you want to add something.
The only thing I wanted to add is it says apparently OU is pleased with growth of housing in the city. I would not say that that is indeed the case. The Summit is across the street from a building that the university, through their foundation, houses, and their leasing is down. So neither of these two complexes are full. The issue has become, of course, the students want to be where all the other students are, so right around your neighborhoods. So.
Years ago, there was this concept of the porch culture, and that's it. I think there's some students who like the apartment complexes, all the amenities, whether it's the gyms in the complexes and everything like that. Other ones do want to live in neighborhoods. They may not know what being, new to the neighborhoods, what a neighborhood is. That's part of the instruction, and if everybody else out there is doing something untoward or not neighborly, they're learning. This is part of the learning curve for them. When I was going to school, I lived in a real dump. This Marietta over there, it's a smaller school, 10 times smaller than this one. Town's probably about two-thirds smaller than this one. So there wasn't an impact, but the housing, there wasn't really any, in fact, I don't think there was any code inspection whatsoever. But it was part of the experience. You took it in stride. You learned later that that's not what you wanted. If we could get these kids to flash forward 20 years, then they'd say, "Oh my God, the beer cups on the lawn." I wouldn't, when they're 50 years old or 40 years old, they're not going to want to see those beer cups on their lawn. If you could move them over and have them visualize that in their parents' house, and the cigarette butts on the front of they threw a cigarette butt in front of their parents' house, their parents would let them know. But they don't think in those terms. It's part of their experience, and unfortunately, it's part of their learning. We're part of their learning too, and whether it's the fines they get for littering or the lessons they get at classrooms, we're all part of it. And if we make them feel like they belong, they can also be neighbors as well. We have to work on it. They have to work on it. We all do. Any other questions?
Our meeting this evening is a magnificent expression of participatory democracy. I'd warrant that you could travel throughout this nation and the world and you will not find a finer manifestation of government in action than we've had here this evening. We've had 24 questions from all of you. We have questions that arose back at that open mic session in January, more questions that came in writing during the last several weeks, and 20 plus questions tonight. And let me conclude by thanking again the League of Women Voters and the City of Athens for putting together this and the other Athens Town Hall meetings. Thanks for coming, and we're now adjourned.